pass it, I think, to Kimberly. I don't know who comes after me.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Hello, everyone, again. I'm Kimberly, and I'm going to briefly thread through the conversation about reproductive justice and racial injustice. And I want to start off by sharing this powerful quote. In 1970, James Baldwin stated in a letter to Angela Davis while she was on trial, "We live in an age where staying silent is not only criminal, but suicidal." And I want to say that it's criminal to stay silent to racial injustice because it makes us complicit to perpetuating a harm against innocent people. And I want to expound on what Charlotte and Norbesi previously stated. Reproductive justice means freedom to live a dignified, healthy, and safe life with access to resources and good quality healthcare that is going to contribute for someone to live their best life experience, free from discrimination, free from racism, free from violent acts, coercions, and cruelty. But as we all know in this nation, this hasn't always been an achievable goal for many Black women, Indigenous women, and women of color. Assaults on the reproductive justice of Black women and Indigenous women have been particularly severe given the history of slavery and colonialism. The history of racial injustice begins in our country's inception, when slave masters manipulated and capitalized on the reproduction of Black women for profit from work of enslaved people, ultimately using the wombs of Black women as the engine to fuel our nation's economy. So racial injustices have been propelled by laws and policies that govern the reproduction of women and eliminate their rights to access care from providers that have historically been entrusted to birth work and the care for Black women, Indigenous women, immigrant women, and women of color, which are the Black midwives and midwives of color. And as a direct result of these long-term, effective, strategic tactics embedded within our medical professional organizations, academia, laws, policies that aim to suppress and eliminate Black bodies, Black midwives, Indigenous midwives, and midwives of color, today we suffer the consequences of healthcare disparities, a progressive worsening maternal mortality rate, and that disproportionately affects Black women, and a nurse midwifery profession that is over 90% white. The lack of diversity in the nurse midwifery workforce is not only detrimental to the honor and the survival of the legacy of the Black grand midwives, but to the health and the well-being of the communities that they serve. So to stay silent to these issues of racial injustices in form of access and healthcare is criminal and suicidal, because like me, there are many other Black women and women of color who are qualified and competent, yet have found it nearly impossible to have a career in midwifery and serve the women that they are called to serve. So I ask that we all continue to make noise about all kind of injustice and advocate for the laws that aim to dismantle systemic racism within our healthcare system and to level the playing field with equitable healthcare that is specifically catered to the needs of those who are most vulnerable, Black women, Indigenous women, and women of color. And with that, I will pass it on to our next speaker, Ms. Pari.
Thanks, Kimberly.